Hey everybody, welcome back. Tonight we're going to start project number 26, which is the squared around transition. So we're breaking this thing down here. The squared around is a fairly complex little project that goes into it, and there's a long write-up here that goes along with some of these points on how to figure that out. So I'm going to take you along for the ride on this on how I go about laying out this project to come up with the top view of the project as well as the true lengths of the project, and then convert those two items into something that looks like this here from the base, where you've got the, when this rolls up, this will be the top curve and this will be the 8-inch side, the 4-inch opening, or I'm sorry, the 8-inch side, another 8-inch side, and then another opening yet as we take this along. So with that being said, there's a few pictorials here. Again, this is the top view of the project. Again, they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, because they're the exact same length, because it's perfectly centered between the part there. Here we have a side view drawn of it with the seam that we're going to work out in a little bit, and then another rundown of the true lengths that go along with this. And this is a little better view of that pattern with a 4-inch section and a 4-inch section to make the 8 with the lock form on this side, and the 1/4-inch take up over here, and then we got our 8-inch, 8-inch, and 8-inch, the other three sides all set up there. So these are going to be bend marks, and we'll fit this together. So, and then we've got our collar at the top here, and then we're into the next project. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing is with the squared around is we're going to make an 8-inch by 8-inch opening. So I'm going to grab the actual squared around here and demonstrate what the part is supposed to look like when it's finished. Okay, so here I've got the squared around fitting completed already, and this one's been installed once, so it's got the lock form and the slip and drive on it as well. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a view from the top of this fitting, and we're going to draw that on paper. So on the left, we're going to have an 8-inch side, 8-inch, 8-inch all the way around, and then this should be a 6-inch circle in the center, perfectly centered on that fitting, if you can see that. So the seam is over here. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is take and draw on our paper the top view. Usually I start maybe an 1/8 or a 1/4 inch in from the edge, is because we need that for that 8-inch dimension. So just take my ruler. I'm going to measure up off the edge of the paper a 1/4 inch. And it's very important that we're very precise on this to make certain these things are square, taking the extra time here to do this. So we're going to measure a 1/4 inch dimension there. Get them lined up. And then again, being really, really precise, we're going to measure our 1/4 inch marks here as well. So if you don't have a sharp pencil, go ahead and sharpen it. Make sure everything is ready to go. And then we need 8 inches in between. And this side an 8-inch opening also. And if we did that right, that should leave us a perfect 8 inches in between here. And then we should be able to measure 8 inches from here down to the bottom as well. Okay, and then you can measure corner to corner, and that should be equal. From both corners. It looks really good, 11 and 5/16 from both directions. So that tells me that that is the centered point. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split that into halves, and I'm going to find the midway points, or rather the 4-inch marks from each side. We'll give it a turn and we'll do the same. Finding that midway point again here. And then I'm going to find the center between both of these. Another way to do this would probably just be able to go from point to point. So it should be right at 4 inches each way. But I'm going to need those 4-inch dimensions anyhow at some point in time. Okay, and then if we cross from corner to corner, that should also give us our center. And I encourage checking all these directions. So you can find the perfect center point there where every one of them crosses, and it looks like I could maybe move it down just a little bit. I'm going to check these dimensions one more time. That looks all right. That looks 4. And it looks like I could have moved that down just a little bit, and that would have straightened a lot of that up. And then let's check this other side as well. That's 4. That's 4. See how the centers work out there. That one looks pretty good. We'll check this other corner to corner setup here one more time. And that looks better. Right there where they all meet and they all line up. Okay, the next thing we're going to go after here is we are going to try to draw the 6-inch diameter radius on here. So you can take your scale and you can set it for 3 inches, put it on 0 there, and set it right out to 3. And then, again, figuring out where all your center points are. Put a mark down on the paper on all 4 edges. or all 4 points here, quadrants. And they should measure an additional inch to the outside. So 11 to 12, that works fine. 11 to 12. An additional inch there. And up here, we've got an additional inch. If anything, it looks like I can move it down just a little bit. So I might do that. And then before I do that, I also want to check to see that my 6 inches came out right where it belongs, and we're within about a 32nd of an inch. So I'm going to say that's pretty good for this project. And then we'll finish that circle all the way around there. And that's the start of our project, looking from the top down. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my lengths from looking from the top down from the equal dimensions all the way around. So I'm going to make some points here. And for starts, we're just going to run in here on our inch transition offset from the bottom of the part. What I'm getting at here is if we were to look at this and put a level on there, this from here to here is an inch setback in the center. From here to here is a different distance. At that angle, if we turn it, it's much more than an inch. So we're going to figure out those dimensions as we roll around this project. So let's look from the top down. And let's set up our 1 inch offsets. And these are going to line us up for some later dimensions coming up in just a second or two. All right, and we're going to mark this line. I'm going to call this a 1 inch line, and I'm going to mark it right here, and I'm going to call that point A. This point A will match this point A, so it's again a 1 inch line, and I'm going to mark that point A. Same here, this is the same dimension, 1 inch in point A. And the last one again, 1 inch distance with point A. The next thing I want to do is I want to break this quarter of the circle into, let's see, I think 4 more parts. So we can do that. We can split it in 2 just simply by crossing from point to point across the sheet there. And then we'll go to the other quarter, or half, I guess, half the sheet here. And we'll break them into their quadrants. Now I'm going to split each one of those segments into one more section yet, or split them in half as again. The best way I found to do this is simply take the dividers and kind of do a little guess and check here until you found your center point there. So I've got one done up here. I'm just going to kind of reference to, but find about where the midpoint is, and then set it on your mark, make the mark, and then check it from the other point up here and see if they cross, and then adjust. So it looks like they came together right at the perfect setting there. I think it looks pretty good. Maybe just anything, just maybe a touch smaller, but with that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at point A, and I'm just going to work my way around the circle, and if they were equal, I should be able to break this thing down into equal segments all the way around and end up back here at point A, and without having this thing stretch or grow or anything like that on down the line. So I'm going to try to watch this as we go around the circle and make certain that they have a tendency to fall right into place where they belong, trying to maintain everything compared to the previous marks there. Oops. What happened? Something moved. Something moved big time. Well, let's reset it down here and then we'll continue on. That shouldn't have moved, but something moved in there. I don't know what it was. So let's check it. Again, after it's set it, we don't want the thing to move. So I don't know, maybe these pins moved or something. And we'll work our way back around. Oops. Pays here to be as precise as possible too. And then hopefully when we get all the way back around, we'll have equal segments and they will, with any luck, line back up to where they belong. And there's our last point. So if you look back here, there was a couple spots, like right here was one, where it was just a little bit short. Now that could have been in maybe this project wasn't quite square when I measured my 8 inches, or my 6-inch circle was just a little bit one way or the other when I made that radius, and that's probably why they didn't come out quite right. But this was my starting point, and I finished where I started without adjusting it anyway all the way through there. So that is good. Now that I've got that distance set, if you've got an extra dividers, I encourage that you just let it set and don't mess with it for the rest of this project. So we're just going to set that one aside, and we're going to have that one set as our distance between marks. So if this was point A, that means this will be point B. This will be point C. And then if I mirror image this, that means this goes back to a point B. And then we bring it back to A. So we got A, B, C at the point, and then it goes B, A, or C, B, A back to the next point. And again, we'll continue that around there. So we got A, B, C, B, and A at our A point. And then we've got B, C, B, A, B, C, B, until we get back to A. This is our starting point. Maybe I'll just put a little star in there for you so you can see that. In every A line, all 4 of them should be the same. Every C line, all 4 of those should be the same. And then every B line, all 8 of those should also be the same, because there's 2 B lines in every quadrant here, there's one A line per quadrant and one C line per quadrant, if you can look at it that way. So the next thing is to connect the lines, the points, to the edges there. So we're going to go from point A to the corners on each direction there and work our way around this thing. So from point A to the corners, we're going to start with this. We've got a 1 inch from A. We got an A with a 1 inch line. Then we've got an A line. Maybe I'll go around the circle. A line, and then we've got a B line. And the C line is done. Then we go back to a B line to this corner, this point. And then we've got an A line again. And then we've got our 1 inch line. And then we go the opposite direction. We go to the next, once we get back to A, then we go to the next point. So again, A on down. And then B down to the point. And C, which is done. And then we go to B. Back to A. And then we're at our 1 inch in the middle at the 4 inch mark here, and then we are going to the next point. Again, when we get to A with the 1 inch, it moves us on to the next point. Okay, so A to B to C, which is done, and then B. Back to A. To the 1 inch, and jump to the other point. To B. To C, which is done. To B. Back to A finally. And then this is the star point. This is where we started. So we should have, if we count this up right, the spaces between here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 equal spaces around the circle, which is what we were after. We've got 4 quadrants with 4 equal spaces in each quadrant, and we've got in every single quadrant, we've got 1 A line, 2 B lines, and 1 C line. And then, if you want to look at it that way, we'll start again the next quadrant with 1 A line, 1 A point, 2 B points, 1 C point, and then start the next one all the way around that project. So this is our offset lengths that we can measure off this. Say if we took our project here and we set up a level, maybe I can do this with a pencil and maybe measure this, and not with that ruler very well, but from the edge of the top, it should be 1 inch offset there, and I don't know if you can see that or not very well, but that's our distance at the midway point of the part. If we come to the edge and we go from the edge to C, if I set it at an angle there, I might be able to do this yet. Edge to the C, Then my distance looks to be about 2.5 inches in the middle. And then as we work our way around, the setback is going to be different as we go around this project. So now that we've got this taken into account, we're going to go in and find our offset and our true lengths of these parts. So from the distance, if on the part from here to here, here to here, here to here, and there to there, and so on. So what we've got, what we're looking at is from here to here is an A line. Here to here would be an A, or a 1-inch line, we're going to call it. So this is the 1-inch line, A line. Then we got a B line. Then we got a C line in the middle. Then we got a B line, and we got back to the A line again. Okay, now we're going to get ready to establish our true length. So we're going to set this just to the side a little bit here, and we are going to take on this next piece of paper, and we're going to draw a square 90-degree corner about, I don't know, an inch or so up off the bottom of the page here, or whatever the width of your ruler is. Really doesn't matter. As long as we got a height of 6 inches remaining, that's the important thing for us here. So this is just going to be simply a base reference line, and then I'm just going to measure over 1 inch. So the thing is perfectly square with the paper, or you can use an actual square to do this as well. The next thing I'm going to do here, now that I got my baseline established to evaluate and determine my true lengths, I need to know the height of this part here. And if we look at the height, from where the collar starts, the ring, it was planned out to be 6 inches in height from this point right here. So if I set it, the ruler on 0 down there, and I was looking at that, right up to about here is 6 inches. So that's going to be the height of this part right here. So I am going to square that up with them marks, and I'm going to measure up 6 inches right here. And let me get rid of that square mark so I don't misinterpret that with my 6-inch over the top of the part. Okay, so right there is the top height. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dividers, a different divider, and we're going to find the distance that it's going to be offset. So again, if you're looking at this, you're looking straight down from the edge of the part to the A point is a distance of 1 inch, and we can measure that one. I can do it for you. It should be set in 1 inch right there. So I'm going to take my dividers and set it on the parts. All right, check it, and check all 4 points here to make certain that 1 inch didn't move all the way around, like none of them are different. And if they are, maybe we'll adjust just a little bit, like that one's a little bit shorter, so I'll try to split the difference. But it should come out 1 inch just perfect until we get back to our starting point. And it seems to be pretty decently set there at 1 inch where they come out. The next thing I'm going to do is, if I was looking straight down on that part, if I was looking from here straight down on the paper, that's going to be a 1 inch offset from here to there. So from here to here is my 1 inch line, and I'm going to mark that on the bottom, 1 inch designation. It's not, and then it's a 1 inch offset from here to here. That is, if you look at the part sitting here with the ruler to the collar, is 1 inch offset. And then with my straight edge, I'm going to run that up from point to the 6 inch height. I should probably designate that as well. From here to here is going to be 6 inches in height. So the next thing I need to find, just to find that true length of the offset, is just simply connect the dots. And then I'm going to measure it. And it looks like I'm running about 6 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to mark that down here right in the middle. 6 1/16 of an inch. And that's my 1 inch line. Then I'm going to go back to the plan, and we're going to find out the A offset, looking straight down on the top. So we got to really open this thing up. And then just go around again and verify that all the A lines are the same, which they should be. 2. That one's a little bit short. That one looks good. That one's good. Okay, so it appears that all the A lines seem to be the same length, which that's good. And we're back to our starting over here. And that works out nicely as well. Okay, so then I take it and I carry this distance over here from my starting point, not the 1 inch, but the starting point again. And I put a mark out here. In this one, we're going to call point A to the peak. Or I'll refer to it probably as my A line for the majority of this project. And then I'm going to measure it again. Just figure out my distance, my true length. And it looks to be about 7 1/4. And I'll mark that. Okay, so that's the A line. Now let's go and determine the B line, the offset from the top to one side. And go ahead and check them. Make sure they're all the same. Okay, I don't know where the camera died in there, so I'm going to set back here. Just quickly recap a couple things. The inch dimension, that came from here. We set our distance, dropped that point, went from our starting point, marked our inch, 6 inches high, and I connected the dots to have a 6 1/16 line from the 1 inch. And then I moved on to the B line. I'm sorry, the A line. Not quite there yet. Set my dividers for the A length from this part. Checked it, ran around, checked it with all the A lines, and then I brought it over. And I got my offset length looking from the top of the part down. So again, the part will be sitting like this here for the A line. And then I moved on to the B line, and I had it all set up, and I checked them again. And I think that's about when the camera died. So I went from the B point, found my dimension, checked it with a couple. They were all about the same. So that works. I'm not going to check them again because I did just before, but I did check all of them. Set it on from here, and then I'm going to strike my B offset. Notice the B is shorter than the A line. The A line is the longest line, the B line gets shorter, and the C will be one of the shortest, but the 1 inch is actually the true shortest. So again, let's connect the B point to the top of the part here. And I'll measure that one as well. And that one on this drawing appears to be 6 3/4. And there's one line left, and that is the C point. So we're going to grab that one next and verify all the C's are the same here. That's looking good. That one was just a little bit long. There, that looks pretty good. And then we'll set again from our starting point. We'll establish the C's offset dimension here, which is going to be right there. Connect the dots. And we'll get the last dimension there for C. I'm going to say about 6 9/16 for that one, for point C. And these could be a little bit different from drawing to drawing on how precise you are, so you want to get them as close as possible. Now I've got my true lengths taken care of. Now I'm going to take these marks, these distances, the 1 inch, 6 1/16, 6 9/16 for C line, 6 3/4 for the B line, and 7 1/4 for the A line, and we're going to start drawing that to scale on another larger piece of paper. So this one's going to be set aside for just a little bit, and this one will be set aside for a little bit while I get things laid out for the next drawing. Okay, here we are, we're back. We're going to start this drawing. When I start this, I'm going to start up a couple inches off the bottom of the sheet and make sure the sheet's wide enough, and we're going to start in the middle, and we're going to work our way to the outer portion of the paper. So first thing is we're just going to make a starting line. This is going to be an 8-inch opening, and we are going to draw, for example, just this section right here from the bottom and then work our way to the top. So let's set up a number here, and let's start with that. Start it on 0, and we'll measure over 8 inches, and I'm also going to measure my 4-inch center reference point. This is going to be the part from here up to point A, up in this area somewhere, is going to be this side of the part, kind of looking like this here. This will be the 4-inch section, 0 and 8 on the side up to point A. So let's go ahead and lay that out next. In order to do that, we need to know, okay, here was our 4-inch center of the part, and this is 8 inches on each side there. We've got to know the distance of this 1-inch line, and that's going to be measured straight up off the part there. So the 1-inch line is going to measure from our true lengths over here 6 1/16 in height, and we need to have that perfectly square when we measure that. 6 1/16 up there in height off the base. In order to square that setup up, if we look at the 8-inch point, that's an A distance from edge, and the A distance is 7 1/4 inch to the sheet there. So stand by, I'm going to grab another ruler for this. Okay, I've got a second ruler here. I forgot to grab that a second ago. So I'm going to set this out here, put the 0 on my 4-inch setting on the bottom here, and then that's going to be the 0.1 is where the 4 inch is. 6 1/16 up, so I'm just going to draw on that ruler right where it needs to be. 6 1/16, right there is where we're headed. And then A is going to be a length of 7 1/4 from the 8 inch point over here. So at 6 1/16, we need to land that at 7 1/4. So that'll square this thing up. 6 1/16 is right there. Check it again. I think I moved that. 6 1/16 should come out 7 1/4, and it does. And I'm going to mark that right where it belongs. That has established the height of the side that is leaning in the middle. So from here to here, if I take the tape measure out there, you should see that that's about 6 1/16 on this project, and that goes up inside there with that distance. So okay, so this is the 1 inch mark. 4 inches in the center, the 1 inch line. The next one to take into account is the A line, which I already had marked. The A, if you recall, is 7 1/4. So moving over to this point now, 7 1/4. We're going to mark that one down. And we're going to label that as A. Okay. And we'll do the same on this other side from them same points. 7 1/4. And if we did everything right, they should come out just perfect on the top, right in line with each other. And they do. If I would have extended it right to the point, they came out just right. So that's an A line. So what we're looking at is this side. We've got an A line, and the 1 inch. 1 inch, A and A around that circle. The next thing we got to do is we got to establish the B distance from A to B, and this is the A point, the top up here. From here up to here somewhere is going to be a B distance, and that's where, when we first started, we went around the circle and we broke this thing down into 16 equal segments. We set our dividers for that distance, and I said set it there. We're not going to touch it again for a little bit until we get back to this step right here. So if we run around there, you'll notice that they're all equal distances. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to work from left to right, or right to left, doesn't really matter, and we're just going to strike an arc something like this here, and we'll go this direction as well. And somewhere in this arc, from our 8 inch side down here to here, is going to be our B line's dimension off this sheet. So B was measured 6 3/4. So if we take our ruler, and if we set it on the bottom at 6 3/4, we'll be able to swing that in until they meet perfectly. 6 3/4 on the bottom and 0 on the top, and we're going to make that mark right on down the ruler there as well. And that is going to be the B line for this project, and we'll do the same over here. Start it at 0 on the bottom and swing that in until we find our 6 3/4 dimension there. And we'll draw that down. And that's going to be a B line. Now I've got A to B, so this is A, same as that A, this is B, and this is B, same as these two B's, but they're the same distance, so that's why they're labeled the same. Now let's go find the C dimension. So again, grabbing that dividers that hasn't moved, been keeping that pretty consistent right there. we're going to strike the next arc out, and we're going to find that distance to C. So from A to B, now B to C. Same on this sheet. Strike that up and around on both sides, and then somewhere in that arc is going to be our C point. So back to this other sheet for our true lengths. Get our C was measured 6 9/16 for this. So again, setting it at 0 down here. Go up till you find 6 9/16 where they meet, and we'll run that down. And that's going to be a C line and a C point. And we'll do the same on this other side. Measured over to 6 9/16. Right where they meet, I want to verify that one. That looks good. C point with a C line. Okay. So we're looking at, from the center, we got our A, we got B, we got C. Now we go back as we're working our way up to the B line from there. So again, with our divider set, strike an arc. We're going to work our way back to A. This is going to be a B line here. So if you recall from this sheet, B was 6 3/4 inch in length. If you notice on this sheet, it still is coming from our outer points. We haven't turned the paper or anything yet. So we've got these points, and I might just label them 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to call this point 1 down here, and this be point 2 over here. With that, so we're looking at from point 1, the B line is the same length as from point 1 the B line this side. So 6 3/4 was B. Six and 3/4 comes right to there. We'll run that one down, and that's going to be a B and a B line. Same over here from point 2. We had an original B line from point 2, and then we got a secondary B line from point 2. It's 6 3/4. And a B line. All right. The next thing, we guys got to keep working our way out here. Now from point 1, the next line is A, and from point 2, the next line is A. So again, dividers makes the distance from both sides there. So I haven't adjusted it. We're going to swing that up. And somewhere in this arc, we should have our A dimension. The A line is 7 1/4 inch in length. So from point 1 to here should be 7 1/4. So there we have A in point A again. Here we have from point 2 up 7 1/4. to get the other side of the A line. So A line with point A right there. All right. Now, it's up to you whether you want to seam this thing in 2 pieces or 1. This project is drawn with 1 seam, so you don't have to work it out. It's small enough that you can work it, but some of the bigger ones, it's probably beneficial to do 2 seams split on both sides. But this one's done with 1, so I'm going to keep with that. You don't necessarily have to draw these 1-inch marks in there. It's an optional thing to do. To measure out the 4 inches and draw it, but I'm going to draw it here in just a little bit. I think the farther you go, the bigger the line, the more accurate it is. So I'm going to go from point 1 to point 4 on this sheet, which is 8 inches, and then I'm going to go back to that A line again, so I get the most distance from point to point. If you notice here, this is an A line going to point A, and this is an A line up here going to point 4. So they're the same length, but they're two different lines and 2 different base lines. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to transition. We're going to have to turn this now, and we're going to go from point 1 to point 4 way up here somewhere with the A line in the opposite direction. So let's go ahead and work on that next. We already measured this base to be 8 inches. We know that, and it's 4 inches to the 1-inch line. I'm going to skip the 1-inch line, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. So I'm going to set it from point 1 to point 4 up here at some angle, 8 inches. We don't know exactly where it is yet, but it's going to be up in there someplace. To determine this angle up here, we've got to have our A dimension from the A point at the top, back the other direction. So from this sheet, we said A is 7 1/4. So I'm going to try to spin this around, set it at 8 inches on the bottom, and then with the other ruler, measure down 7 1/4 to the 0 mark. And try to do our best to fit this all together, making certain things are on 0. 7 1/4 and 8 on the bottom. And once you're satisfied with your dimensions, we're going to connect the dots. Something like that. Again, this is an A point, so this is going to be yet an A line. And this will be the base, an 8-inch distance. Well, hang on that. Total length to point 4 out here is going to be 8 inches. And then I'm going to split that. I'm going to measure to the 4-inch section here, so I can show you where the 1-inch line comes into play. So if I measured 4 inches, the halfway point, the 1-inch line from this sheet we said was 6 1/16. So if we did everything right, from point A down to the midway point should come out to be 6 1/16, and it looks like it's pretty nice right there. So if you like, you can draw this in here, but you don't have to do anything with this. This is optional. 1 inch. Unneeded. All right. Let's work both sides the same. So this was from point 1 to point 4, this direction. And then if we roll it back down, we got from point 1 to point 2 is done. Now we got to go from point 2 to point 3, this direction. Again, from point 2 to point 3, the actual length it measures is 8 inches. And then we'll use that A from this point A out here somewhere to establish the next one. So working from the bottom, 0 to 8 inches somewhere up in there, figuring out this next angle. and figuring out our A dimension from this other sheet, the 7 1/4. From point A, moving down, 7 1/4. See if we can get this all lined up. Right there. And right there. That should give us our next triangle. Again, that would be point, let me get this right, point 2 to point number 3 out here. And again, this side I'm just going to skip it, but halfway from the point down would give you that 1-inch line from this sheet, 6 1/16. From here, like this, 6 1/16, if I get it perfectly squared up. And it came out. Alright, and then we're back off and running again. So we've got this section complete. Now we're going to roll it this direction and roll it that direction to make up the rest of the chunk here. So let's go ahead and move right around the corner. This one's done. This half is done already. We got C would have been the midpoint with 1, and then B and A. We got C, B, A done. We got the 1-inch line on our sheet there complete. And on this other side, we're starting with the A dimension to point number 4. So now we need to go the distance from A to B. Again, that was with our dividers. A to B here. And we're going to strike that next arc. Up in there somewhere. And I usually make my arcs fairly good size, just so that way I don't have to do it again later. So somewhere in that distance is going to be the next line. So we got A done. It's going to be the B length from here. B is 6 3/4. So with your ruler, you can measure 6 3/4, or you could do that with your dividers too if you had them set from your true lengths. And that would probably be something I should do, is get them set if you got enough of them. 6 3/4 is going to be point B. And line B. So B is complete. The next line is C. So again, with our distance, C to B. Striking the arc. Finding the C distance off the sheet, 6 9/16. And there's point C and line C. And we'll keep working our way right around here. So we got B and A next. So we got our distance. Make sure you grab the right dividers if you got a bunch of them here. C to B, that's right. B's distance, 6 3/4. Right there, 6 3/4 to 0. And there's B. And line B. And back to A. So keep going. Same divider. B to A. Check it. Set it. Strike it. A's distance 7 1/4. A with line A. And that is starting to look like something. So then we are up here again to the last section of the sheet. Yeah, let's finish it. Now remember, there's only 4 sides of this thing, so there's really no point to go an additional 8 inches. We've already got an 8-inch side. We've got side 1, side 2, and side 3 done. So that means out here, we've only got to go half the distance on this side and half the distance on this side later on to get that that 4th side there. So 8 inches the total. That means we're going to only measure out 4 inches, and we're only going to go down to the 4-inch point, which would be the 1-inch line for these last sections. So the 1-inch line is 6 1/16 long from the 4-inch mark. 6 1/16. And they're 4 inches. Check and verify. And again, once we got them, that should give you that square edge. Whoops, didn't transfer. Or didn't mark anyway. And that is a 1-inch line up to point A, just like this. So we got the 1-inch line here from point 4 up to point A up here on the top. All right, and that's going to be half the part, and that's going to be where we stop for right now. Later on, we'll add a 1/4 inch onto that and a 3/4 inch for the base. So, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's finish up this other side first of all. So again, I got side 1, 2, and 3 started, and half of 4 is done over here. That means we got to get to half of 4 over here. But before we do that, we got to finish up the point A. A line's done. We need B, C, B, and then back to A to get that last section done up here. Okay, so we're on point 3 on our table, which is right here. Point 3, and we've got to establish up here to get to the 1-inch somehow. So from point 2 to point 3, we've got A. The 1-inch is from here to here. This is the 1-inch, which I didn't draw, and then which you don't need to draw. And then A is from point 3, A to point 3. That's an A line with an A point right there at the top. Now let's go to B. Again with our dividers. A to B's distance here. Set that up. Strike the arc. Take the true length from B, 6 3/4. That's going to be a B point with a B line. And we'll keep right on rolling around here. The next is from point 2 to 3. We got the C line. So again, figure in our distance with our dividers. Strike that arc from B. And then find your true length from point C, 6 9/16. That's going to be your point C with a C line. And then we go back to point B. Again, find your distance. Strike an arc. Find the B length, the true length. 6 3/4. That's going to be a B point with a B line. And then we got to finish up with an A point up there. So again, right back to this. From here to here is our distance. We'll strike the arc. It should work. I got a little bit off there, but that should be fine. And then true length from A, again, 7 1/4. Right there. And that's going to be an A point with an A line. And then lastly, we got to finish this thing up. We've already got, again, going back to this scenario, the same as the other side, we've got half of the fourth side done. Side 1, 2, and 3 is done. 3 1/2, and then half of it, another half would be 4. So we'd have all 4 sides of this part. But again, we're only going halfway. So from point 3, before we get back to point 4 over here, as we went around this thing, 4 inches here, then these will be 4 inches remaining on this side over here. So we're going to set that up, and then we're only going to go to the 1 inch line length again because it's the midpoint. So back here, 1 inch is 6 1/16 long. 6 1/16 there, and 4 inches. I can't see that very well. This is maybe a little bit better. Oop. Right here's your 4 inch, 0 to 4. So I know it says 8. 6 1/16 up there. And we'll get that squared in. Just where it needs to be. Make sure this is 6 1/16 yet. Just making some minor adjustments. And we'll square them 2 dimensions. And that is the 1 inch line to point A. Alright, at this time we can do a little bit of freehand work, and you can go from point A to B to C all the way around, and that should have a nice radius in there. So it'll look something like this. You want to make this as round as possible. I know it's a little bit difficult to do once in a while. And this is going to be the round cone of the part. Okay, so we got the top section done. Okay, so the top part's done. At this point in time, we are done with the base configuration. All we have to do is we got to add on to the sides our lock former and the connection. We've got to add on the 3/4 inch to the base so we can have some place to put our slip and drive. And then we got to add on an additional 1/4 inch for the top to make this rolled little hem joint up in here for that connection. So in order to do that, we're just going to simply measure on an additional 1/4 inch to all of these points here. So I'm just going to go around and we're going to set it, point A, point B, right on down the line there, adding that additional 1/4 inch on to the setup here. All right, and then we'll again just run around and we'll freehand that to that additional 1/4 inch. And these will have to extend up. Okay, the top hem is done. Now we've got to work on the bottom area for the slip and the drive, and we're just going to simply measure on 3/4 of an inch straight down for that. And this was the reason I started up a little bit off the bottom of the paper so we could do this. Actually, I think it might be an inch. I better check. It is an inch. Let me try that again. So now we're going to add on the inch to the bottom for the slip and drive. Up here as well. Just simply measure it straight off the edges and add that 1 inch section on there. All right, and then we'll just extend the A lines out and down beyond this. And that's going to give us the notch in here. So this will be out of here. This will be taken out. Same over here. This will be gone. Out of here. Extend this part. And one last thing to do is to add the lock form to the edges of the piece. So normally in one side it takes a 1/4 inch, one side takes a 7/8. Doesn't matter which side you put it on, you just pick one and put it there. So let's put the 1/4 inch on this side here. Just simply measure that on there, and it should be noted that the 1/4 inch is going to stop an inch up off the bottom. Does not have to run all the way down. And it also stops a 1/4 inch from the top. For this section as well. So you have an opening here and an opening there. If you like, I would recommend to keep this square so it's tight, but if you like, you could probably set this back a couple degrees. It wouldn't really hurt a whole lot because it's going to be in the S-clip. Entirely your preference. So that side over there had the 1/4 inch. That means this side is the take-up of the lock form machine. Most of them in the field are a 1 inch take-up, but ours is a 7/8 in the classroom or in here. So we're going to measure 7/8 over. Again, most are 1 inch is what you would put on here for the lock form. Measure that a little better. Okay, again, I kept this nice and square here with that. So this is going to be the lock form. And this is going to be the other half of the lock form, the 1/4 inch. All right, and there we've got it. The squared around where the circle is actually centered in the leaving portion. You can go at this and you can have this circle set to one side as well. It just takes a little bit more effort on getting your actual lengths there with that. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this part of the video up. I hope you'll join me on the next one where I transfer these marks to the actual sheet metal and we build this thing. So with that, thanks for joining me. I hope you found this helpful, and we'll catch you on the next one. See you later.